Hello and welcome to another episode of Oh So Curious. And today we have a lot to talk about. There's tons of news. We went from having not a lot of news to now having a lot of news to talk about. And so we'll get into things like Megalopolis and going to cons. We're gonna talk about the new Supergirl movie release date that we just got. That is hot off the press. We're gonna get into a lot more news like the new Rings of Power season 2 trailer. If you were a fan or not a fan of the show, well, there's another season coming. So we'll talk about that, of course. Tom Brady regretting his roast on Netflix a little bit. We'll get into that as well. And of course, today is George Lucas's 80th birthday. So, Star Wars and The Phantom Menace episode 1 is celebrating, it's about to be celebrating May 19th. It's 25th anniversary of its release. So we'll get into that and so much more. Of course, Planet of the Apes, that's going to be the movie of the week. So to do all of that and so much more, let's get the show started. All right. So we've got lots to talk about, guys. Welcome to the show. Angelina, John, how are you guys doing today? I'll start with Angelina. How was your weekend and what's going on in your life these days?
As I'm accidentally muted, guys. Hi. So yeah, things have been good. Busy. Things are picking way up. We've just been rolling through it. There's lots going on, lots to do. It is like event time in LA. I swear every day this week I have an event, which is a lot of fun, but it's crazy and lots to do, but it's good.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, it seems like things are starting to pick up as we get into the summer months, and especially for Hollywood, right? So, John, you of course have been out in the movie theater watching
Oh yeah,
Planet of the Apes.
that's
How was that experience?
that's kind of just what I'm doing. The only thing I'm really doing. That's the only time I leave the house. To be fair, still being, having a bad cough and still trying to get over the last bit of this cold. Still kind of prevents me, but I'm just kind of just going to the movies, checking everything out because that's my life. That's my whole personality is just movies. So as you could tell from pretty much my entire room around me. So
Yeah.
it's a peaceful life.
Right. Yeah. Well, outside of when
Very
you're
zen.
trashing Tom Brady.
Zen.
Yes. Well, we're gonna get started with, as we do on the show, with the news. So yeah, I mean, we always talk about what's going on in the world of Hollywood, but oftentimes with news, there's some pretty ridiculous stories out there. There always are because Hollywood is full of crazy creative people, and so yeah, let's dive into the news.
It doesn't seem to matter what I do. I'm always number 2.
All right, mister, I need to paint my abs on to get nominated. You don't see Robert Downey doing that.
You're kidding.
You're
kidding. I can't open the envelope without the...
Warner Brothers is heading back into the Matrix with a new movie in the works.
What the hell is even that? Okay, I'll shout it from the rooftops. I want to be Bruce Wayne. I like that. You're gonna love me. What the... Give me a hand up. Nope, I'm actually okay. Thank you very much. Oh, wow. Wow.
Why does he look so sad?
David, why are you so sad?
I loved that.
That was crazy.
So let's get into the news. So we'll start. I mean, there's a lot to get through for the news. It's a very busy news cycle. So we'll start off with some business news, the business of Hollywood. Paramount shares took a dip based on a report that Sony is rethinking their huge $26 billion bid, which they're co-financing with Apollo Group. And this is something that comes on the heels of news last week that Sony entered the talks, and because basically Skydance, which were previously in an exclusive negotiation window with Paramount to buy them out, that period expired, and so Sony entered in and said, "Hey, you know what? We'll join in with Apollo. they're sort of just a management company, and they're not really a media conglomerate or anything, but they're helping finance and fund Sony's bid. So that was a big part of just figuring out what's going to happen with Paramount. And Sony's plan has been that they wanted to buy Paramount and then sort of break it up into pieces, maybe keep Paramount Pictures, the IP, and take the CBS, take a lot of the other television and sports assets and stuff, and then sort of like sell those off and spin them off into their own companies. So now we're at a point where it looks like Sony is reconsidering its bid. Angelina, you read this article a little bit. What was your understanding of what's going on here?
Yeah, it actually just sounds like I think Paramount, especially after the quick exit of the CEO last week, it sounds like the shares took a dip just due to that and due to everything being sort of up in the air. And that is actually what made Sony want to rethink their bid, which makes sense. I mean, Paramount, when originally Sony and Apollo put in this bid, obviously there's a lot going on. They were planning to pay in cash, which would take Paramount private. They would have to do a lot of due diligence, but just on the face value, it looks like Paramount shares dropped 5% on the market. And so Sony is like, all right, well, 5% lower. Do we lower our $26 billion deal? Because that would make sense. So that's kind of what's going on right now. Paramount is going through it. It doesn't seem like it's going to level out until it finally transitions to a new home.
Yeah, this is something where it's going to be a complex transaction no matter which way you go about it, right?
Yeah.
Because Paramount is a company that is full of many pieces that over time have been sort of collected through the Redstone ownership. Sherry Redstone has been sort of shepherding it, but her father is the one who really kind of put this whole empire together. Whether that includes Nickelodeon, it includes CBS, CBS Sports, Paramount Plus, of course Paramount Pictures. But John, you were researching this before we started off. I mean, Paramount is one of the oldest studios in Hollywood, right? Like they've been around a long time.
It just celebrated, just 6 days ago, celebrated its 112th anniversary. So it's overall the sixth oldest behind. Well, it's the second oldest American studio, sixth oldest worldwide. But only Universal's the only other older one. Just beat him to the punch by a little bit more than a week. But so it's it's just all kind of like bittersweet when it comes to this sort of thing. Like it's just like sort of like an American institution sort of thing, where it's just like. But I guess, business, it's all business. But, I look at it from like the starry-eyed movie point of view, where it's like they brought us so much. I know it's like things aren't really changing, because I know like we still technically have Fox, even though it's under Disney, but it's still like bitter about
it's not the same, right?
Yeah, it's not it's 20th Century Studios, not Fox. So
exactly.
It just feels not even bittersweet, just bitter.
Because the biggest thing about like Skydance buying Paramount would be that Paramount Pictures would sort of stay the way it is, right? Because if you think about it, when Disney bought Fox still kind of is its own company, and they have their own studio backlot.
Yeah.
But they don't really make movies anymore. They use those facilities for other things like television production and such. So not only did you have that thing where now there's one less studio backlot providing space for these movies to be produced on sound stages, you also have the issue of it's all now part of the Disney slate. 20th Century Studios is another studio under the Disney umbrella. So the overall output of movies has gone down as a result, because it's whereas maybe Fox might put out 15 movies a year and Disney might put out 14. Now that it's all one thing, they combined might put out like 18. So cumulatively there's a drop in production, and that has hurt movie theaters because there's less product to go around, less opportunities to bring fans into the movie theater to watch movies. So here, if Sony ends up buying Paramount, you gotta wonder, does Sony really need another studio backlot? Because of course Columbia Pictures backlot is what Sony bought into years ago when they first entered into Hollywood, back I think it was in the 80s or something. So they don't really need to double that. There's going to be a lot of redundancies, and when what we saw with Disney and Fox, what we saw with Warner Brothers Discovery mergers, a lot of people end up getting laid off because there's a lot of redundancies in like the HR teams and various other areas. So that's probably gonna happen here too if Sony buys into this, and then Sony is gonna be like, we're gonna keep a lot of our people around. We don't need a lot of these Paramount folks around. Plus, what this piece of news kind of tells us is they need to kind of dive in a little bit further to really scrutinize what Paramount's books look like financially, and that's gonna take time. And both Sony and Paramount stock prices will fluctuate wildly in that time. And of course, the studio at Paramount as a company, they've now got an office of the CEO, Angelina, like you mentioned, because they don't even have a CEO in place.
Yeah.
They have like 3 people acting as a committee. It's a CEO by committee approach, which is very rare to see at this scale. But I mean, we'll see where this goes, because obviously this doesn't look like a situation that's gonna see a resolution anytime soon. It looks like this is just another step toward
Yeah.
either Sony or Skydance, because Skydance's offer is still on the table.
But
I know
also,
that
I really don't see how they didn't assume something like this was going to happen with the CEO leaving so quickly. Like,
right.
it seemed like such an abrupt decision. Of course, it's going to affect how the business shares are on the market. Of course, investors are going to be like, oh, nope, I want out. Like, it's was going to happen regardless. So hopefully, we'll come through with a new evaluation should they rethink it. And I don't love Sony buying Paramount. I kind of hate it when big corporations want to take on other corporations, and just it's never good for the little guy.
I feel
right?
like in 10 years time, everything is going to be either owned by Apple or Google. Like, that's just, I feel like, and then they're like going to constantly rewrite laws that it's like, oh, it's not a
monopoly. But I feel that way about
and,
Disney. Yeah, I feel that way about Disney. Like,
I mean, it feels like every year we hear that Apple's going to buy Disney, and I guess maybe Apple's just waiting for Bob Iger to like fill up his gauntlet with as many studios as he can, Pixar, Marvel,
and then they buy him out.
Lucasfilm, and then they buy him. Like, maybe that's what Apple and Google are waiting for, until like all these other studios combine, because that would be we lost a big
with
studio
our powers
in 20th
combined, we become a monopoly. Like,
monopoly,
it's
duopoly,
like Captain
however,
Hollywood.
Yeah,
he's a hero. That's like
well, I mean, what's interesting about this, to kind of wrap up this story, is that Skydance's offer is still on the table. The shareholders prefer the offer from Sony. So it looks like I don't quite know where Sherry Redstone stands. I think she's the one who drove the Skydance offer. And then, of course, the shareholders prefer what Sony is offering. I know that the CEO was sort of, looking to kind of get Warner Brothers Discovery into it, but they can't really enter into negotiations for a certain period of time, I think until next year, because of their previous merger where Warner Brothers and Discovery combined, and there were, some specific terms to that agreement with AT&T that doesn't allow them to buy or sell any part of that newly formed company for a period of time that has yet to expire. But that said, Paramount's on sale right now, and we'll see where this goes from here. But that's not the only big story that's going to be shaking up the world of entertainment. You talked about Amazon, Google, and Apple. Speaking of Amazon, they've got a big show. Like, it was touted as the most expensive show ever made, with a per episode budget of over $50 million in season 1. So I can only imagine how much money they're dropping on season 2. The new trailer dropped today, Rings of Power. It's a Lord of the Rings show, at a time where we just heard that Peter Jackson is coming back to Warner Brothers to do another series of movies that's going to be in that same world, and is going to be focused on Gollum, and I think they're aiming for a trilogy. I don't know if Peter Jackson is directing that or not, but he's definitely going to be a big part of it.
He's only producing.
Yeah, so with that said, of course, now you have Amazon here doing their thing, and we know the first season had a mixed response. So you guys watched the trailer for this, the teaser trailer of the second season. I mean, it still performed like bonkers good. So like, they saw the numbers they needed to see.
It really, it's so surprising too, because everyone I know that watched it were like, terrible, absolutely awful, 10 out of 10, do not recommend. Like, John, I think you were talking about Big Tolkien friends were like, absolutely not. But the Rotten Tomatoes and IMDb scores are still pretty.
I don't get it. It just looked terrible to me. It just goes to show, no matter how much money you have, it'll never be the quality of it,
I truly tried to watch the first episode, you guys. I was so bored. I was like on my phone 10 minutes in. The acting was bad. The script was bad. I was just like, I don't
Yeah,
care.
I think this is one of those cases where it's like, oh, we didn't think about failure, so let's just chug along. That's what it just kind of feels like to me. Because
Crazy.
it's just like I don't get, like, I rarely see. I mean, I'm sure there are some people that like it, and that's fine. If you like it, we're not shitting on you. You can like it all you want. It's just like I've heard like big Tolkien fans, whether they were, you know, fans of the book, fans of like the extended lore, fans of the movies, not The Hobbit specifically, Lord of the Rings, but like a lot of them are just like, this is just not Tolkien. This is there's like, there are fan films out there that feel more Tolkien than this does, and they're trying to propagate that, like, oh yes, this is definitely his vision, where it's like, it's not. It really is not. So, you know,
Yeah.
but again, it's just kind of like it's kind of like Amazon's Game of Thrones. It just kind of feels like they're like, okay, Game of Thrones was popular. Let's kind of try to do our own thing. What's an IP we can use? Oh, Lord of the Rings. Awesome. Let's just do that.
Do you remember how much money they spent buying the property before they even like spent money on making it? Didn't they spend like $500 million just
That wouldn't
buying
shock.
the rights to basically like a small piece of the book, very small piece of the book?
What was it? It was I think it was
a
Universal
preamble to the Hobbit, right?
Sorry to cut you off, but I remember Universal bought the rights to The Exorcist for $40 million. And
no,
it's
it
like,
wasn't 40. It was 400, I think.
It was
something like
400.
that.
Okay, I thought it was
crazy.
It was 400 million.
It was,
and it's just like, how
doesn't I don't get it. I mean, maybe they probably have a very long game in mind. I mean, Amazon, of course, plays in the long game here too, but then
something that's changing.
They've got money to burn.
Ditched David Gordon Green because the movie sucked. So, you know, it's.
If I were to ask you guys just a simple yes or no question, will you be watching season 2 of The Rings of Power?
No, I didn't watch season 1. I never plan on watching this crap.
Yeah,
like, you know what will be it will be the same amount of time of season 1 of one season of this show is the same amount of time as watching the Lord of the Rings extended editions. So, you know what? I'd rather just watch that instead, because I know it's going to be better. So why would I watch this crap when I can watch like the real creme de la creme? So it's like, oh, what do I want to eat? Like, what do I want to eat at? Do I want to eat at a Michelin star restaurant, or do I want to eat at McDonald's? It's like, come on. What do you think I'm going to pick? Like, it's obvious.
I mean, I had fun with the first season. As somebody who's more or less a casual fan of the franchise, I thought it was something different, but I know I'm in the minority, but you know, we'll leave it at that. What I want to get into right now is something a little more DC related. I know we have Supergirl news that we got to get into, but before we do, I wanted to also touch upon how over the weekend and late last week, I think we got this news that, of course, Frank Grillo, who we know is playing Rick Flag Sr. in the animated Creature Commandos series coming out later this year, we now know he's also going to be in Peacemaker season 2, the live action show. Yep. So Frank Grillo, you know, not only being cast for his voice, but also, of course, we know that he's going to now appear physically in the flesh in Peacemaker season 2 as Rick Flag Sr., which begs the question, how does that work exactly? Because if you go by what James Gunn said on his, you know, on his threads and Twitter, wherever you find it, he's sort of teasing the idea that there's some unfinished business there because, of course, spoiler alert, if you watch The Suicide Squad that James Gunn directed, John Cena's Peacemaker kills off Rick Flag, played by Joel Kinnaman, but that's in the old DCEU, and apparently that's not supposed to be canon to the new DCU, but what they're hinting at here with unfinished business seems to imply it is. So, John, how in the world can this not be confusing? Is there any way that this works? I mean, how do you think they're going to make this happen?
The only thing I could think of is like kind of like I think of it in the way of like how after a while the X-Men treated their continuity. It's like whatever the last movie is canon at this point. I feel like specifically what I view Logan, I feel is its like own separate thing. It doesn't take place in the continuity of any of the films. However, they do reference the first 3 X-Men movies by Bryan Singer and Brett Ratner. So I feel like in the world of Logan, it's like those events happened, they happened, but not in the way that we saw them, just like kind of similarly happened. That's what I think they're gonna do here, where the best thing, it's like the Suicide Squad isn't gonna be canon, but like the certain events happen similarly to this world. Maybe they'll do a better job at explaining it, but it's just like this is kind of a rough case where it's like people who are real, obviously the fucking super nerds like us, we're obviously gonna be like, okay, we get what's going on. But like the casual fan is like is gonna be confused unless you could find like a really good way to explain it without coming off as like a giant 5-minute exposition dump in the first 5 minutes of season 2 or whatever it's gonna be called. So it's just like I feel bad for casual viewers because it's like they just want to watch a fun show with John Cena acting like a doofus, and then they have to get like fucking multiversal fucking physics homework just to figure it out. And it's just like I don't get why. And I was saying this to you when this news was first released, how what they should do is essentially just introduce Rick Flag Sr. And then if this iteration of the DC Cinematic Universe franchise goes on for long enough, introduce Rick Flag Jr. later on. Like have Rick Flag Sr., like Frank Grillo, he's in his like 50s, 60s, right? So, whatever age he is, like they'll just make him that age, make like Rick Flag Jr. like, I don't know, 18, 20-year-old. Like he's like, oh yeah, I have a son. And he's like interested in like military shit. Maybe he's in the army or something. And then they tease that. And then when Rick Flag Sr. dies, or when Frank Grillo dies, or, you know, they have to kill him off or whatever, then you bring Rick Flag Jr. Really make it like a generational sort of like extended timeline sort of thing, instead of just like this confusing mishmash of like different continuities that's gonna confuse half of its audience. So
I just wish that James Gunn wasn't trying to have his cake and eat it too with this, because it is going to confuse people no matter how they go about it. Because, you know, people want something that feels a little simple and you can easy to follow. And I know even in a world where comic book universes exist and the cinematic comic book universes, people still don't want to have to do a ton of homework to go watch something and enjoy it. And so if you watch Peacemaker season 2, you don't want to have to think about stuff like this. I mean, one potential idea they can go about here is Joel Kinnaman has been aging up in every season of For All Mankind. Maybe they can go the other direction. Maybe they can age him down. Maybe he can play like a teenager, and then it'll be still a hard sell to see.
Yeah, and then we're gonna get Robert De Niro in CGI, like in The Irishman, and it's just gonna look like it's terrible.
So yeah, I mean, well, okay, let's move on to another piece of news here. This is a pretty significant one. We have the Cannes Film Festival coming up in France. If you are a film nerd, then of course that's one of the biggest events on the calendar. And John, as you know are putting your hand up there, I want to ask you about Megalopolis. What are your thoughts on the first trailer? And then Angelina, I'll come to you next. Like, what when you saw this trailer, what were your initial reactions? So the trailer, it's a teaser trailer. We know the cast is stacked. So John, you looked at this, and what do you think?
Yeah, I immediately after watching that, I was like, Mr. Coppola, you had my curiosity. Now you have my attention. Like, I was unsure about this because, you know, this has been in the making for almost half a century at this point. So Coppola's been trying to get this made since, you know, the earlier parts of his career. So it's like, I don't know, because I know The Man Who Killed Don Quixote that Terry Gilliam was trying to get made for 20 years finally did, and everyone was like, that's okay. So I was kind of worried for this, and then a lot of people, you know, who watched it were like just silent. They were like, okay, that's all right. So I'm like, I was a little worried, but then I saw this. I'm like, oh, this is Coppola at full power. This is him. Like, this man needed to. I feel like this man just constantly got blue balled by everybody in the industry, and now he's finally letting it all go. And I'm like, all right, I'm here for it. Let's fucking go. I love the cast. I mean, Adam Driver is a legend. He's becoming a legend. That is Giancarlo Esposito. Love him. Aubrey Plaza, Dustin Hoffman, John Voight. All excellent. Talia Shire coming back, you know, his sister coming back to the realm of film. Because I think she's retired at this point, but, you know, anything for family, right? Family.
For him, of course,
So I
said
think
the word.
I did. I'm waiting for that clip, by the way, and I'm just stoked. I'm super stoked. Like this looks fucking great. As my friend did say, this looks ambitious as fuck. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm stoked.
Right. I mean, Angelina, what do you think about this? Because when you walked into this
Yeah.
trailer, you didn't have a ton of background on the movie. And walking away
So
from the trailer, what's your reaction?
you know, I read a bit about the movie. You know, obviously Francis Ford Coppola is incredible. We were talking Godfather, like truly incredible filmmaker, has been in the industry for forever, but this movie seems like a mishmash of I don't even know what, like The Matrix and Doomsday and all, or it's like just bad. It seems incoherent. I actually did not like the trailer at all. It seems like a bygone era is trying a little too hard. Am I hoping that that's not what comes through? Am I hoping that all of the actors would not take on a movie like that? I know that's sort of like a scathing review of the trailer. I mean, we are talking like some of the most incredible cast. We've got Adam Driver, like Lawrence Fishburne, as you said, we've got John Voight. Like we have so many incredible people in this movie, but this trailer is like, you watch the trailer and you're like, what is this movie about? Like, what is this like?
I mean,
what is it about?
The general, to put it in one sentence, at least what its own synopsis says, is basically it's a story being told where if you're kind of watching ancient Rome, but in modern America, it's sort of that mishmash, which is obviously going to create some tonal, like, issues potentially. And it seems like that's what the trailer did for you, Angelina. Also, on the other side of this, financially, Francis Ford Coppola for years said that this movie nobody would finance and no studio wanted any part of it.
There's
and
probably
so he ended
a
up putting
reason for that.
Right. I mean, it
Yeah,
seems
but
like,
a studio fucking greenlit Madam Web. Like, are we really surprised that these assholes are like doing anything of substance these days? Like, come on.
But I just don't know if I agree with you that there's going to be substance here. It almost seems like pompous bullshit.
It's a teaser trailer. It's just, trying to...
The trailer is giving
whistle, that's all.
Pompous, like, there's no real point to it. That's what it seems like. You literally talked up the trailer so much. You're like, this movie's going to be incredible. And I'm like, yeah, no. Like, does Francis Ford Coppola even really know what this movie is about? Like...
Yeah, the whole film is about like, as we saw in the trailer, it's like some like accident happens to like this New York City-esque city, and they have to rebuild. And Adam Driver plays this architect who has the ability to stop time, and he wants to rebuild this city into like this sort of like self-utilizing utopia. But capitalism, evil man, mayor wants to create a regressive totalitarian state. So it's like a battle of creative visions and trying to build something that could sustain humanity, and then as well as I think Aubrey Plaza's character trying to go off on her own thing and trying to, find herself as well. So I think that's just an intriguing plot. Like it's sort of like an entire movie about like trying to, get your vision out there. And as a filmmaker,
I love that that's your take on it. But if you watch this trailer, that is not what it's giving everybody. Everybody that is watching this show right now, that is not at all what the trailer gives. The trailer is giving mishmash, just confusing.
Well, yeah, it's not giving any like huge plot points because it's a teaser. It's not supposed to give major plot points. That's for the trailer and
it's at least supposed to make you feel like you want to watch the movie. It made me feel
I know
like
tons of people in the comments that are like, we're so back, let's go. Like the entire comment section is like, Coppola, let's go. Let's get this. Cinema is back, baby. Let's go.
Stick to wine, Coppola. Stick to wine.
Look, ultimately, whether this is going to live up to The Godfather or Apocalypse Now, like some of the greatest hits of all time in Hollywood that he's responsible for, we're going to find that out. So far, taking this to Cannes, they're hoping to get more distribution. They've got some distribution in Europe, like Italy, Germany, the UK. They just closed a deal with France. And the goal of going to Cannes is, you either flop on your face like Indiana Jones did, or you get standing ovations like Top Gun Maverick did. And, that will probably bring it to the attention of one of the big studios, hopefully, that they can then pick it up for distribution. It is, until then, probably the most expensive indie movie of all time with a budget of $120 million and a cast, that quite frankly, you wouldn't see in any movie that is made for any less than $100 million. So we'll see, how this thing plays out. There's definitely, a lot of anticipation behind it. It's kind of like that next Quentin Tarantino movie. People were like, when is it coming? When is it coming? They want to see the movie more so for the fact that it's Quentin Tarantino, less so maybe for the fact that, what the movie is actually about. But speaking of, pioneers of the business, today is the 80th birthday of the one and only George Lucas, who birthed the world of Star Wars upon us. And it also is the week of the 25th anniversary of Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace. Do you guys have any personal Star Wars experiences that you recall as like core memories? Because this is the man who's responsible for a lot of people out there in the world today and their love of movies. At Also Curious, we're all about the love of movies, and George Lucas has played a big part in it. Whether you like Star Wars, whether you like anything else that Lucasfilm has produced, Indiana Jones, and even just what he has done for for digital cinema and how movies are made today. Just the process of filmmaking, George Lucas is responsible for a lot of what we have today. Like, John, do you have any thoughts on?
Well, not George Lucas specifically, but Star Wars in general, where I could feel my love of Star Wars fade away when I watched the Rise of Skywalker trailer. I can give you that. But he created something great in 1977, and for me, it ended in 1983. Star Wars, Empire Strikes Back, Return of the Jedi. That's all I need. Those 3 films, that's Star Wars to me, and it ended there. There's nothing that came after, and I will live in ignorant bliss because of it. So I'm happy with those 3 films. I love them deep in my heart, so I will just leave it at that, so
Angelina,
I don't blow my brains out.
It's fair. He said that the first 6 movies are his. He doesn't really take ownership of the Daisy Ridley trilogy.
Crazy. I watched the original trilogy with my dad when I was really young, and I just remember it kind of being our thing. And then I watched the prequel series and fell in love with Natalie Portman there. And God, what was his name? He's so cute. Hayden Christensen, is that his name?
Hayden Christensen. Yep.
Yeah, beautiful man. That was like probably one of my first movie actor crushes of all time. Do I look back at those movies now and be like, wow, those movies were terrible? Yeah, of course. But it's such an integral part of so many of our childhoods, and wonder and fiction and fable. And I think it's a wonderful intro to sci-fi. I think it has changed, again, how we see movies, how we make movies, and it's a classic. It's Star Wars. You haven't seen Star Wars? That'd be like somebody being like, yeah, I never watched Harry Potter. I'd be like, say it again. Say it one more time. Yeah, it's crazy. It's just like a staple of Hollywood. It's a movie staple. And whenever I have kids, they're going to know who the Beatles were. They're going to know Bob Seger. They're going to watch Star Wars. And then I'm going to make them read all the Harry Potter movies or books. That's what's going to happen.
If you put subtitles on, they can technically read them then. Don't worry, it still works. It still works.
Definitely.
It still works. I saved you. Shut up.
Also, I got a haircut, and it looks like crazy. Yeah. It's just not having
cool.
A day. Sorry, guys.
It's all good. Rapid fire. Tom Brady regrets his Netflix roast, and he wouldn't really do it again because he didn't like the way it affected his kids.
His ego hurts.
I read about
this. That's a nice way of him saying that. His ego hurts.
I watched it live, and it was brutal. They had everybody. The Bill Belichick and Robert Kraft handshake that Kevin Hart kind of egged on. That was the most awkward thing I think I've ever seen. Just seeing them two being trying to be as cordial as possible. I think Robert Kraft was into it, but Bill was not having any of it. But the roasts were just really going in hard. And then of course both of Tom Brady's exes came out and were like, oh, we were not really sure. They didn't really get asked about it or get, permission. But Brady did kind of set some boundaries, but still, it was the first of its kind, and Netflix wants to do more of them. Did you guys
Giselle
watch them?
Bündchen there?
No, she wasn't. No, she just. I
Yeah.
think she posted on her Instagram or something after talking about it. I know that John, you are not really into anything Tom Brady because you're a fan of the Giants, and
Yeah, I'm a Giants fan. You could probably
yeah, I see it. It's right.
yeah,
It's
I didn't
right
need to
there.
watch a Tom Brady roast because I already saw him get roasted fucking twice. So, I don't need to see that. Like I already saw this loser get fucking roasted 2 times as a Giants fan, and that's all I need. I took away his undefeated fucking season so he could go,
Guys.
so it affected my kids. Yeah, well, fuck your kids, okay? Get the
Oh
fuck
my
out of
God.
here.
John,
Okay.
cut him off. He's off the show. Done. That's not okay.
The guy has
Yeah.
7
Calm
rings.
down.
He's the GOAT.
They'll
Come
be
on, man.
I
fine.
was like, you have to leave the kids out of it. That's a good border. That's a good border, like sort of.
They didn't really
situation. It's
do
one of these
a
things.
lot of stuff with that. It was mostly
Well,
the kids.
no, because he set that. He was like,
Yeah.
everybody set that up. They were like, it literally was in his thing. He's like, look, I am signing up for you to roast me. My kids are off limits, like, period. And so even with that being said, there were some things like hearing your dad and your mom get talked about like that. Like I can see that affecting me, especially if the kids came into contact with it or saw it or were there. You know what I mean? Like I can see that being hard. Obviously, there were some jokes that, like there was this one moment that I guess Tom Brady actually walked up and was like, "Don't say that again. Like don't say anything about that."
I do
again.
remember that. I do remember.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, look, ultimately, it's hard to be there, and he took everything head on, and then when he kind of defended himself, I'm like, yeah, this dude, he deserves all the success that comes his way after being basically the best player in the history of the league. So. And I'm a Patriots fan, so I'm biased. But with that, let's move on to the last news story, which is Warner Brothers is giving some dates to some of their upcoming movies. Companion, I don't know what the hell that is. Weapons, I guess we'll figure that out when it comes out in 2026. What I'm excited about is that Mortal Kombat 2 is coming out next year in 2025. John, what do you think about this news? Did you like that new Mortal Kombat movie, or are you hoping that they bring back that Mortal Kombat and like the whole video game music?
I've never seen a single Mortal Kombat film. I've played a little bit of the games, but I believe Mortal Kombat X on my PS4. Never played it, but it was like free with PlayStation Plus. I'm like, oh, I'll take this. So I have that, but I never played it. I played like some of the older games though. I think I played the original SNES version if I remember correctly. But yeah, it's fun franchise. I know I've seen bits and pieces of the original film. I've seen bits and pieces of the god awful Annihilation film. I just heard this one was really fucking bad because the main protagonist was like
story.
It didn't have a story. The
action.
main protagonist was like a wet blanket. Like nobody liked him.
Yeah.
But that's pretty much what I've heard. Like I've heard at the most I've heard it's like it's okay. But I remember the director or writer talking about how he wanted it to be a trilogy where the first movie would take place before the tournament, second movie would be the tournament, and then the third movie would be taking place after the tournament, which is kind of dumb because who gives a fuck about before and after? I want to see tournament. I want to see people fighting. Like that's the whole point of Mortal Kombat. So I don't know, but hopefully people who liked the first one are excited. I don't know. I just heard it was not very good. I can't judge it personally. I have not seen it. So maybe this one will be good. I don't know.
It wasn't a movie that you enjoy because it's a good movie. It's a movie you enjoy because there's some fun fighting scenes in it, and you get there was some of that original music from the 90s in there too. Angelina, do you really care for Mortal Kombat at all, or that's not really
no, literally no. Sorry.
Well, I mean, I personally am looking forward to this. Hopefully they have a better transition from the second to the third act, because I think that's where that movie lost me, because they just sort of you were kind of in the middle of the story, but then all of a sudden you had final fight sequences going on. But anyway, that was the news. As we transition away, we're going to be coming back with DCU Daily, and we're going to finally talk about Supergirl coming in 2026. John is mega excited about this, and so am I. And I think, Angelina, you probably have something to add there as well, because we've talked about this before, and it's a new universe, and there's a lot of new characters, including a brand new iteration of Supergirl. But before we do that, earlier we were talking about George Lucas celebrating his 80th birthday today, and of course, Star Wars, episode 1 of Phantom Menace, that is celebrating its 25th anniversary this year. So let's take a look at that for the love of movies, and then we'll be right back after that with DCU Daily.
All right, get out your lightsabers.
You just may have noticed that Star Wars, the latest episode, opens nationally at midnight tonight.
You will be a Jedi. At last we will have revenge.
Hello and welcome to another episode of DCU Daily, and today we are talking about Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow. Hot off the press, we now know the release date for the new Supergirl movie. It is going to be directed by Craig Gillespie, and of course we know that it's going to be starring Millie Alcock in the titular role, and it's going to be a script that's written by Ana Noguera, so there's lots to talk about here, and to do that and so much more, of course, joining me is John. How are you doing, and how excited are you that we finally have another DC project that has a date attached? Because that seems to be something that we have been just begging for, and now we finally know the next super something movie, I guess, in the DCU after Superman and when it's coming out. So what are your thoughts?
I want to be excited. Like, I don't love the director choice. Like, I know his last film was Cruella, and that was like kind of mid. Not bad, but it's just kind of ridiculous. When you see a Dalmatian drop kick someone off a cliff, it's like, was this really all that great? So it's just a little awkward, but I hope it's good. Like, I don't know anything about Ana Noguera. I haven't seen Millie Alcock in anything, and Craig Gillespie, however you pronounce it, was hit and miss. So we'll see. And it's based on a writer whose DC stuff has been very hit and miss. I read Mr. Miracle and it was fine. I have yet to read this. I hopefully plan on soon. Buddy of mine read his Batman run and said it was single-handedly the worst run of in-continuity Batman he's ever read. So, and he is a big comic book nerd, so I trust him. So I want to be excited. I think Supergirl deserves like a really good product after, the terrible movie in the 80s, the mid to mediocre to terrible show, her appearance in the terrible Flash movie. Supergirl needs some love. We got to give her some love. She is such an intriguing character. She's so much more than girl Superman. Like, that's what, unfortunately, the TV show treated her as, when she's so much more than that, whether it's pre or post New 52. I think there's a lot of intrigue with this character, and I feel like it can be done really right with the right people, writing for it, a lot of right people attached. So I want it to be good. I really want it to be good.
I mean, for me, this is just, movement in the right direction because we finally have a date. Like, I believe outside of Superman, this is the only other movie that they announced that has a release date that's out in the main continuity. Because I know that Swamp Thing doesn't have a release date yet. The Authority doesn't even have a director attached to it.
Allegedly.
We know that allegedly. Well, like Craig Gillespie, it's not official yet that he's attached. Well, I guess this article confirms it. But for months we were like, okay, he's in discussions, but was it made official or not? Now we know that it is official. And we know that next year there's only one. Well, is there only one? I feel like there's only one because the Batman Part 2 moved to 2026.
The Batman Part 2 moved.
So Superman ends up being the only DC movie next year, kind of like Joker Folia does this year.
Yeah.
So then now it looks like we're gonna have Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow coming out in June. Is June 26, 2026?
June 26th.
Right? That's the date.
June 26th.
So.
Yes.
In the middle of the summer movie season, we get Supergirl, and then later on in October of 2026, we're gonna get the Batman Part 2. So we are gonna get like two really big pictures here, and with Millie Alcock attached, who's already an absolute superstar. It looks like they're gonna
superstar.
Yeah, they're gonna pack the cast hopefully with a lot of other strong actors. Speaking of strong actors, of course, Mark Strong has joined the Penguin. So that was something else that was in the news. I do want to get your take on this, Angelina. You heard about this. How excited are you to see that Supergirl is now finally going to get a release date? We know the TV show has been off the air on the CW for a couple of years now. They've distanced themselves from it. This is a very different take on the character based on the Woman of Tomorrow run in the comics. What are your thoughts on the idea that we're getting this movie in 2026? Do you think they're going into production soon, or do you think this is still going to wait till like next year?
I mean, as far as Supergirl goes, I really don't have a whole lot of context. I was never a big comic book girly. I love the movies. I love DC movies, Marvel movies. I never really watched the comic books, and I don't think we've ever gotten a really great movie depiction of Supergirl before. I didn't watch the CW show. I just
Good.
thought it was kind of cringy. Yeah, I'm a big fan
It
of
is.
CW shows for the most part, but the CW show seemed so cringe. And I knew that actor that was
Yeah.
playing Supergirl from Glee. So I was like, now you wanted to play a superhero? Like, I'm all about variety when it comes to an actor's wheelhouse. Just
Yeah.
seemed a little interesting for casting. Wasn't exactly my favorite. So yeah, with that being said, I'm really excited to finally get a depiction of Supergirl that I can look forward to. I think Millie
Yeah.
Alcock is going to do a great job. I think she's incredible, and we'll see, y'all. We'll see. We're definitely in for a whole lot of DC.
Yeah.
A whole lot of DC over the next couple of years. It's going to be exciting.
Yeah, I mean, do you guys think that we're gonna get Millie Alcock making a cameo in the Superman movie that's already been filming now for like 2 months?
It would make sense.
It would make sense, maybe as like a post-credit scene. Like I
Yeah.
can't see her as like a big like cameo. But I cannot tell you like how good I want this movie to be, because like because I was talking about this with a buddy of mine, just real quick side note, because George Miller recently released something, Furiosa, coming out in a couple weeks, another female-led action film, darker action film. And he said that like, oh, Anya Taylor-Joy has like 30 lines of dialogue throughout the whole movie, because he's like, film is a visual medium, so dialogue just slows things down. He's like, he loves that faster filmmaking, so he wants to keep things, really, really quick. And my buddy was saying, like, after hearing that, he's like, man, I really want to see George Miller direct the new Supergirl movie. This was before,
Right.
Craig Gillespie was
Yeah.
attached. And I'm like, that would be awesome, because he was saying, he wants to do, like, he does want to do a superhero film after, he got Justice League ripped away from him. I still will not forgive you, Australian Film Committee and WB. Screw you guys. We were gypped out of the greatest Justice League film of all time. To hell with you. But like, I like, from what it's described as, it's like, this could be like an Edgar Rice Burroughs, like, space opera with notes of Kurosawa, and have it like be filmed in like the Australian outback. That could be like really awesome if like George Miller was doing it. But it's like, we get the guy who directed a movie with a drop-kicking Dalmatian. So again, we'll see. I want it to be good so badly, but like,
when you said that, you sounded like Daffy Duck when he goes like succotash. Like, you got that excited about what you were just saying, which was so funny. It's
also,
very cute.
Wasn't that Sylvester the cat?
Yeah, that one.
It was.
Yes.
Yeah.
There you go.
You were
sound
close.
like him.
That's okay.
Yes. It's all in the Looney Tunes.
Sorry, you were gonna say something, Angelina?
No, yeah. Ultimately, I am excited. I do agree. Dialogue slows shit down, and you saying that about Furiosa makes me even more excited about that.
Yeah, I'm stoked for that.
Yeah, and there's been too many movies recently where I'm like, yeah, you could have cut that dialogue. We didn't need that. We just didn't need it. Sometimes less is more when it comes to dialogue. So we'll see. I'm ready for some action. Let's get some good DC movies in, because DC can't afford to fail at this point. Let's be honest, everybody.
Yeah, and this is something that is in the Deadline article that we have up on the screen. Not only because this is a conversation going on in the live comments on YouTube, and Jay Kelly's in there, Johnny Dome Studios, who said, "Hey, would love to see Nick Cage play Jor-El, which would be fantastic."
But I
Nick
remember
Cage's
Gunn saying that he wants someone in their 30s to someone actually. He's like, I don't get why there's so many old guys playing a guy who just gave birth. I mean, with people like Robert De Niro and Al Pacino, makes sense.
right.
But Gunn has said he wants someone in their 30s to actually reflect, an actual
Someone that looks
fatherly
like they're
who
in their 30s.
actually,
Yeah.
recently had a baby. So,
Yeah. I mean, it's
I mean, Robert De Niro and Al Pacino, didn't they both just recently?
yeah, that's what I was referring to. Both of
did.
them just had children at the age of like
It's
What a
80.
bunch of creeps! I know, it's so
It's
wild.
like
Honestly, we love them,
I don't
but
know.
like, oh
Make it up with
god,
evolution, all right? It's not our
yeah, I'm like,
fault.
what the
By the way,
hilarious.
I was gonna mention Russell Crowe didn't look like he was not in his 30s for Man of Steel, and they show the whole birth sequence before Clark is shot up into the sky as Krypton dies. Um, for what it's worth, though, as far as Supergirl goes, the character's involvement in the DCU prior to her movie in 2026, it says in this article, and Deadline really put out an article about this earlier, so they're mentioning it here as well, that Millie Alcock is set to appear in another DC project prior to making her big screen debut, as the Angel of the Sky in Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow. And that would line up with the idea that, they cast her so early on before Superman went into production. And I feel like if it's any project before Supergirl that she would be in, don't you think that would be Superman, the movie that's coming out next year?
I agree. I think she's going to be in a post-credit scene. I don't think she's going to be in the movie. I think she's going to be in post-credits. 100%.
Well, Johnny Dome had this idea, John. What do you think about this? Like, what if Gunn pulls a Zod from Superman 78 and have her in the beginning of the movie and that's it? Like, what do you think about that? Like,
That could be interesting. Yeah, like show although because there's different ways to do Supergirl, because you have like the original origin, which was like a chunk broke off of Krypton, and they were like a floating city, Argo City.
right.
Then I think the updated origin, which they would probably go with, is that both of them were sent out. And in the show, it was she got stuck in the Phantom Zone, didn't age, and then
Right.
came to
Yes.
Earth way later. And then another one I know of, I think it was in the New 52, where like she got stuck revolving around the sun, which like caused her to supercharge her cells with like radiation from the sun, which is why she was like so much more powerful, and she had all this power and all that. So I'm unsure with what they'll go to. So I wouldn't mind seeing like the typical updated origin of like both of them getting shot off to Earth, and then something happens to Supergirl so that, I don't know, she just gets like stuck in space, like she gets off course, she goes to Phantom Zone, she does the New 52 thing. I don't know, but that would be kind of cool. I wouldn't mind seeing Argo City again, because the last time we saw that was in the original 1983 film. So, or 84, 83 or 84, I forget which one, but
It was 84.
84. So
Look at her. She's so cute.
I like that costume. It's very classic.
Yeah.
It's so
I feel like,
classic. It's so classic.
yeah.
But yeah, I think I'd like to see that, whether it be like that or she's at the very end and or in a post credit scene. I think that would be very, very cool. So
Yeah.
I just I want to see my girl done right. Is that too much to ask? Is that too much to ask?
We all want to see these movies do well for themselves. Like I'm really saying it, like the DCU cannot fail after the DCEU failed.
There's a lot of pressure.
Hard.
It's
like,
I mean, sorry, go ahead. You were saying.
No, I mean that's truly what it is. Like every single one of these movies needs to hit. And maybe one out of the four can maybe just under hit, but like they all have to hit really well.
Yeah.
I'm at that point, like, I don't know if they're going to be able to even get funding they need to spend the amount of money that they do on these movies. You know what I mean? They've just had too many flops at this point.
Yeah. And by the way, Hunter Iggy had this comment earlier, and he was asking about Asher Angel sort of campaigning for the role of Nightwing. I know this is a little off topic, but John, do you have any thoughts on that? Like,
honestly,
that something that you'd be interested in?
I don't know if he would be good as Nightwing. He might still be a little bit too young. I think he's in his early 20s. He might be like 20, 21. He
He's
might be a little bit
21, yeah.
okay, so he's 21. I think that's a little bit too young for Nightwing, especially with what they're aiming for. I would want someone who's like mid to late 20s for Nightwing. I could maybe see him as Tim Drake or maybe like a smaller character, more like a supporting character for like the Bat family. I think he could do well as Nightwing. Like the whole I mean, I don't like it. I get why they do it, but like the whole thing of Nightwing is that he's like the hottest like Bat family member. Like and so like I get what they're doing because like I'm pretty sure it's like a commentary like, oh, women were so sexualized for so long, so they made like the big thing with Nightwing is that he's like this super sexy like character with a great ass. Like that's like the running joke.
With a great ass.
That's
Honestly,
like don't blame me. That's
why-
literally like an ongoing running joke in like DC Comics that like Nightwing has a great ass. Like
Literally,
that's
me Googling Nightwing because I've never seen it before, and it looks like Damon from Vampire Diaries. Like that's what the comic book character looks like.
yeah,
Hilarious.
like he's supposed to be like this really hot character. I just can't see Asher Angel in that. Maybe because I like
Yeah, he's a baby.
yeah,
He's
he's like a kid
Yeah.
and he like and he we like and I always have this weird stigma of like watching like seeing like the Stranger Things cast like as like young kids and then like later on
Yeah.
even before legal age like people are like sexualizing them. That like
Yeah,
just
it's
feels like
weird.
weird to me and I don't really like that.
I agree.
So when there's like it's not the only thing of Nightwing's character. Obviously, he has a lot to offer. He's a great character, all encompassing. But like when a big thing is his character is his like sexuality, charisma.
No, I agree.
In that
Honestly,
realm, I would feel weird like talking about
also,
that
you
with
know,
this guy.
there's
that
also
we've
some
watched growing
other.
up.
I mean, I think 21 is like a really young age to like hypersexualize anybody, but this guy, like, he still looks like a baby.
Like a high
you look at
schooler.
his, like he looks really young. So I agree. I don't think even visually he would be a good fit for this.
But
So
I think Tim Drake could be good if they have like I could also see him as Red Hood because or well at least like in a flashback sequence as Jason Todd because that version of Billy Batson earlier on in the Shazam film was sort of like this rough and tough kind of like Jason Todd-esque character where he's like, I don't give a fuck about anybody. I gotta survive. I don't give a shit. Like blah 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 blah, all this other stuff. So he kind of gives off that Red Hood vibe, or at least that Jason Todd vibe. So I could see him as that as well. But I don't think Nightwing would work. But I would love to see him because like I understand why he was like kind of upset because like this is like his first like Shazam was like his big like entrance to the world, and then like with the sequel they kind of doubled down on like not giving him like a lot of like screen time even though it was very character driven piece. I heard there were reports that there was a lot of bickering between him and Levi wanted more screen time, cut his scenes out. It's all rumor mill, take it with a grain of salt. I don't know if that's true or not, but there was like a whole bunch of that and he felt like kind of gypped in the long run. So I think he deserves a second chance. If Jolimar Dueña was already confirmed pretty much even before his, film was like out, I think Asher Angel deserves a second chance because Shazam Fury of the Gods was definitely not as bad as some like getting
So
nominated for worst picture. Like, come on, get out of here. So
Johnny Dome Studios asked, "Can Asher be Red Robin?"
Yeah, definitely.
Which I think you
see
kind
it.
of already.
Yeah, I could see it. I could
already
see him
said.
as Tim Drake. I think he has the range for it. He's a good actor.
Yeah.
I mean, he can also age into the role of Nightwing.
Yeah.
They're not really
Yeah,
making
yeah.
that movie today. Like, like if you're
Yeah.
talking 3-4 years, he's at an age right now where he's gonna quickly.
I don't know.
Age
He's
up.
still he
So-
gives really young. Like
Yeah,
you
because
look up his,
it's like Tom Holland vibes a little bit, where he even though he's like
he's
25
very
at this
youthful.
point, he still looks like a 19. He still looks like a 18, 19-year-old. So
Yeah, and
it's
I'm not
just
here
like-
for it. I agree
Yeah.
with you. It has to be somebody else. I could see Robin. I feel like Robin, character wise, has always been younger, especially standing next to Batman. Like he's always had like a sort of like younger demeanor. His even his character is driven by like a slightly more like less mature vibe than Batman always was. So I can definitely see Asher Angel as Red Robin, but
Yeah.
not the other one.
I mean, look at that suit. Look at how dapper he is. Like, look at that.
Like he's like a
That's
cute little
fucking awesome.
baby. He's a little baby.
I love that suit though. That is I wish I could. Oh my god, I want that suit.
That suit.
That is like rocket. That looks like a
nice.
death metal logo. Like all around his suit, like the thorns. That looks awesome. I love that. And he's rocking it. Look at that smile. Like, look how charismatic he is.
He does not look like that anymore, of course. This is probably
this was a couple years ago, but I'm just saying, like in general.
Like this is him now, I feel like, right? Like he's
yeah,
like you said, the Stranger Thing cast, like, you know, they're growing fast. Like the kids grow up fast. They had to rush that second movie because they were like, these kids are gonna be like adults by the time.
Yeah, and they're still delaying season 5. Ooh, so that's gonna be awkward.
But like switching back over to the Supergirl story, the news of the day, you know, June 26, 2026 is when we now know it's officially coming out. Craig Gillespie is directing. We know that Millie Alcock is starring in the movie, and we know that Millie Alcock Supergirl will show up in another DC project before her own movie. Could be the Superman movie. It could be any of the other projects, one of the TV shows, maybe Peacemaker season 2. Could be even more star-stacked than we know already. But you know, Derpy Entertainment had a question. He was like, anybody on here reading or has read Woman of Tomorrow? And I mean, Angelina, I don't know if you have, but because I'm not sure. Is it safe to assume you haven't?
Definitely not. Sorry.
But John, what about you? What did you?
Not yet. I know I have like a pantheon of comics to read, and I have no time. So I'm sorry. Like I'm busy reading some other stuff that my friend lent me, and I want to read that before. You know, before like it's like 20 years and I'm like, here's those comic books you lent me. So I want to try and, you know, read those. But I have this on the docket. I have so much stuff to read, so much stuff to watch. A very busy.
I mean, I got my Woman of Tomorrow and comic, and I've been enjoying it so far. So I'm looking forward to reading it all the way through before. Now I know. Now I've got a deadline.
That's kind
right?
of
Like now
thicker than I anticipated that comic book being.
Yeah, it was like a 12-issue series, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, this is a whole volume, so it collects the entire 8-issue miniseries. So this is not just one comic.
Okay.
This is like the whole
that is like the
volume.
thickest comic book I have ever seen in my life. That makes sense.
This is I mean, if you want to get this, I mean, I got mine from
you know,
Final
Dan,
Boss Comics,
I'm good, but you let me know how it is.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I was saying I have now got a deadline. I know that I need to finish
got something even more.
By June 26th of 2026.
This is one volume of a 3-volume series. Nightfall. Look how big that sucker is. That's the thickest comic book I have. Yeah. Boom.
That's like a Harry Potter like book almost.
Yeah, it's like how many pages is
of just pictures?
It's like it's almost 600 pages. It's over 600.
That is basically Harry Potter.
This was a long series. There's a lot of crossover comics.
Just to preface this, you all, I am quite literate. I love a good novel. The longest book I've ever read was probably like 1,300 and 1,400 pages. I read. That seems absurd for a comic book. I always grew up thinking comic books were like just little big.
Oh yeah, there
so
are
many little photos. Like that's just what it is. And little comic book little thingy.
Well, this is a collection. This is a collection of those itty bitty comic books. This isn't like one. Like it's
a whole volume.
It's called a trade paperback. It like collects everything of this story, and this was like a multi-series story, and this is the first volume of 3, I believe. And this, so it was like a huge...
So it's safe to say that Angelina, out of all 3 of us here on Oh So Curious, is the least nerdy of the nerds.
Probably. I didn't want to assume, but yes.
Yes.
Basic.
Yeah.
That's
the
least
nerdy of the nerds.
I have one more question. By the way, now that we know that this movie's coming out in June 26, 2026, Superman, Woman of Tomorrow, that is. Do you guys... Supergirl. Lots of things going on. Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow. Given that it's coming out in summer of 2026, when do you guys think this goes into production? Angelina, I'll start with you. You, of course, are out in LA. You see movies, you know, all the time that are in production. You're part of a lot of projects, so you have a pretty good understanding of the timelines for how these things work. So what are your thoughts on when do you think they take this into production?
You know, a lot of it has to do with scheduling. I would say they finalized the main character over the next few months. They're definitely going to finalize casting to fill out the rest of the role, secure like producers, secure everything like that. If they have not already, then they'll secure locations. They'll probably move into filming between 8 to 12 months, I would estimate. And then they will probably wrap filming probably 4 to 6 months prior to the release. So if any reshoots need to be done, if any of this needs to be done, then you have all this like CGI editing. That usually takes a big amount of the time here. But they do start editing as they shoot. So typically, like every director has like a slightly different approach to it. But yeah, you know, but that's the general timeline. Like I would say they will probably start filming from like maybe 6 months. Maybe we'll shorten it, right? Like 6 to 8 months. They'll probably start filming or start initial screen tests and then move into full filming. And dependent on schedules and stuff like that, this movie could film for 3 months every day, could film for 6 months every day, or it could film for 8 months over the course of time, right? It really just it's so dependent on scheduling, producer schedules, director schedules, timeline, and biggest set here is the locations. But it's safe to say within the next 6 to 8 months, this will be moving in production.
I think that's a fair point. And John, like a movie like this is VFX heavy. I assume it's going to be VFX heavy. They're going to be shooting on sound stages, but they'll also build out
probably use the volume sets. Or AR wall, whatever the thing they have is. They would probably be using a lot of that. Even though I would love to see, like, you know, this is just me kind of being funny, kind of being serious, or just like go old school, like Super Sentai or Doctor Who. We're just filming a fucking rock quarry for 3 months and then just see what happens. Like, I'd kind of love to see that because, you know, that's awesome. And, you know, it saves money. And instead of like all these lavish sets that'll end up looking like a rock quarry anyway. So, you know, but that's just me. That's just like my old school, like practical sort of like cheapness of it, because it kind of adds to the charm of it all, you know?
Well, yeah. I mean, the other thing, by the way, I do have to point out the fact that this Supergirl movie is going to be the first project that we know about so far going into production. Now that we know when it's coming out, I think Angelina, your timeline is pretty much on point. This is the first project where James Gunn is not really directing that we know is an active production or pre-production, where he's got his fingerprints all over Peacemaker season 2. He's directing Superman. But here you'll see James Gunn, what his vision is like, kind of like in more of that Kevin Feige role, Peter Safran as well, of course, the two of them, and how they sort of shepherd this project. Peter Safran, of course, was a big part of the DCEU. He produced the Shazam movies, the Aquaman movies, of course, the Suicide Squad that James Gunn directed. So this would be interesting because Craig Gillespie also, I don't know if he has a ton of experience with effects heavy movies like this. Does he, John? Or how much other stuff that has he done that's sort of in that realm?
I don't think he's done. He's mainly an indie director, I would say.
Yeah, so
like he did like pretty much the biggest production he's done was probably Cruella, in terms of like,
which is a studio picture, but
big studio picture, but like, you know, Mr. Woodcock, Lars and the Real Girl, Fright Night,
I, Tonya,
Finest Hours. Like, you know, he's kind of had
he's an indie. He's an indie kid.
Mainly indie, but he's done like a couple like bigger. I think The Finest Hours was also a Disney production about like the biggest like Coast Guard rescue.
Oh, that was a really big flop.
Yeah, it sucked. So like, you know, we got like that in terms of like big productions. So yeah, the big productions, like he's made some like pretty damn good movies. Lars and the Real Girl, I've heard it's great. I mean, it's got Ryan Gosling. I mean, you have $1 Million Arm. I heard was good. I heard Dumb Money was good. Tanya got nominated for so much. Meanwhile, like all the
fun movie.
Meanwhile, all his bigger productions like Fright Night, Finest Hours, and Cruella were mainly mixed to negative. So I don't know. Like it's kind of.
I mean, Cruella is getting a sequel, So, and it
Yeah,
seems to
that doesn't
do
make it
well
good,
enough
though.
on streaming. Well, I mean, ultimately, as far as this project goes, I can confidently say Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow is going to be Craig Gillespie's biggest project to date. It's
Yes.
also Millie Alcock's role of her career and her life so far. And we now know it's coming out in June 26, 2026, which is a couple of years away. It gives them enough time, like Angelina, you mentioned, to get into pre-production and maybe start
Mhm.
filming as early as fall of 2024, where we are now, or maybe they can even wait until spring of 2025, because Superman will probably be finished in through his production phase towards the end of this year, even if they do reshoots, which puts them on a timeline to come out next summer, and then Supergirl could be really the big focus production wise. And if they've got TV shows ongoing, they've got lots of projects in development. I can't wait to hear when Swamp Thing's going to go into production. I want to know which director they have attached to the authority. And John and Angelina, as always, has been fun talking about Supergirl. Guys in the chat, of course, we have had Hunter Iggy to leave us a comment, Dorpy Entertainment. We have had, Jay Kelly show up.
We got a
Fiona's
lot
watching.
of a lot of people in this chat. We can't get to everybody.
Johnny Dome Studios.
Sorry,
we try to get
guys.
to everybody's. It's great fun, and we love the interaction. We will answer any questions that you guys do have for us. And Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow. I'm sure we'll get into more of it now that we know that the movie's got a release date, and as more news comes out, we will dive right back into that. But right now, we would like to switch over to our movie of the week, which this week is one of John's favorite movies that he's been looking forward to all year long, and it's the latest iteration in the Planet of the Apes franchise, one of the oldest running franchises in Hollywood. So let's take a look at Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes.
Horse-riding apes invaded San Francisco today.
Are you familiar with the concept of evolution?
This is a really beautiful looking movie.
Visually, the movie looks remarkable.
Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes is a good movie.
What a wonderful day!
All right, so Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. It's a long title, but it's the title of a movie that's doing really well at the box office and with audiences. This is a movie that basically is, another chapter in what still feels like the early part of the summer movie season. And whereas The Fall Guy kind of fell flat on his face last week, Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes has gotten off to the second best start in the history of the Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes franchise. So to talk about that and to talk about, whether we liked it or not, we have, of course, as always, John, Angelina, you guys are here. John, you got to see the movie, so I want to hear from you first. What are your initial thoughts? What was your initial reactions? You, of course, are a big fan of the franchise, so I want to know what you thought of the film.
I have seen every single Planet of the Apes movie, except for the Tim Burton one, because don't talk about the Tim Burton one. But I've seen I watched the first 3 films with my dad, and then I got so excited that I'm like, I got to see the rest of them. So I just rented them and I just watched it without him. I'm like, Dad, I'm sorry, I got to watch these. And they're all like reasonable. Like the first movie, the 1968 film, is, still to this day one of the most exceptional, action sci-fi drama films of all time. It's one of my favorite movies. I love it to pieces. It is such an incredible movie. The sequels, kind of some are really good. Like, I really liked Beneath and Escape. Conquest and Battle were like kind of but they're all, at the very least, the sequels are fun. But this franchise has just been hit after hit after hit after hit after hit. And you could tell in the background, I did watch all of them in the theater, all 3 of them when War was released 7 years ago now. And so I was super excited for this. The trailers looked really good. As someone who watched The Witcher for a little bit, I kind of gave up after season 2. I like Freya Allen, and I like a lot of the actors in this, and I was like, I was so super stoked. I was hoping that like some of that Fox greatness would, peek through outside of like the Disney terribleness, and luckily it did. This movie was absolutely fucking amazing. Like, I love this movie. This might be my favorite movie of the year. Not the best movie I've seen all year. That honor probably goes to Civil War, but this was probably my favorite movie because it did so much right. Like, the CGI is so good. Like, after like seeing so much garbage and assembly line stuff with Marvel, not from a quality standpoint, although kind of also as well, but just from a like VFX like standpoint, this like there's a scene in the movie where like there was a lot of stuff got burned down. You could see the particles of ash on the individual hairs on the apes. Like, that's how detailed it is. And I saw this
So
in
you
Dolby.
see it in
I
the
saw this in good.
trailer
Yeah.
too. Literally, that guy is like he's giving a speech, and you see the spit fly from his mouth. I was
Yeah.
like, "Holy
Yeah,
cow!"
it's
So
a beautiful movie. It's
the
really
amount
is.
and the attention to detail is, I mean, truly looks exquisite. But when you step back from that, is it really a good movie? I think is
Yes.
my biggest question here, because critics and the audience score, although this movie made a lot of money and it's sitting okay, the critic score is about 80% tomato meter, so it's certified fresh. The audience score is sitting at 79%. A lot of people are literally like really great, and then some people are like,
Yeah, it's mixed to positive, I would
no.
say. I've
Yeah, so
yeah,
a lot of people are like, it just kind of missed the mark for me. But then there are a lot of
I
people that are
understand
like,
that.
no, truly, this movie is exceptional. Also, pivoting to Freya Allen, I love her. I think she's incredible, but it almost
Yes.
looks like she's playing the exact same character that she plays in The Witcher. No?
Nope.
No?
It's
Okay.
again, so this is a spoiler review, so I'm gonna spoil some things. Um, but she's not like that at all. She is The Witcher was very much like a kind of brought along for the big adventure, kind of trying to learn more and more. Her character named May in the film seems like that at first, but then as it goes on, you realize that she's more in control of this situation than she lets on, and she sells that very well.
Mm-hmm.
Ray Allen gave a great performance in this film, and I think that's a lot of like. There's so much greatness because one, it's kind of like Civil War where it doesn't spoon feed you, information. It treats the audience with respect. It's well made. There's a lot of nuance here, a lot of subtlety with
Mm-hmm.
it's a very character driven movie. It's not, I would say, light on plot. It's lighter on plot than I would say some of the other films were, but it's definitely feels like it's more character because I feel like this is a movie that's gonna reintroduce a new world for this. I've heard that they want to make 9 movies in total. Like, they want to make,
Okay, that's absurd because this is like the 13th movie under this franchise,
well,
essentially. Like this
9
whole
in terms of the reboot franchise. This would be the 4th, so they can
no.
make a
Okay.
trilogy. Yeah, not 9 more.
I was
Sorry,
like,
that's
oh my
my
God.
bad.
Like,
9 in total, like including Rise, Dawn, War, and this. This wants to be a trilogy, and then essentially what Disney did or what Star Wars did, and then another trilogy after that. So 9 movies in total. So this starts like a new trilogy of films. Noah, the character on screen we see before us, he seems like he's going to be the protagonist. And what this does is just like, what's so great about this movie? I think the best thing to take away from it is like, it doesn't treat anybody like a bad guy or a good guy. There's so much shade of gray with all these characters, like a lot of subtleties. You see their motivations, you see, like, you understand, but it's like, is it good? Is it bad? Well, we're not telling you. You have to decide that for yourself. And I love that. I feel like it doesn't hold the audience's hand. Now,
well, because
can,
that's such a real
yeah,
thing, right? When you talk
yeah,
about movies, I feel like so many movies and just in general, sort of these novels that we grow up reading and these stories that we grow up hearing, we are always told it's black and it's white, but life is neither black
it's
nor
not like
white.
that at all.
So much of life is so complex, like
Right, exactly.
even
And that's what
and I
this
think
shows.
that's one thing as an actor too you have to learn is like there is no black or white. There is a motivation for why whoever is doing this, and in
Right.
their mind, they think it's right. So I think it's really important when people tell a story that is truer to life and has more grounding in life. So that's incredible.
Yes.
So far, this movie is killing it. They open
Yeah.
at $131.2 million globally.
Yeah.
Box office domestic debut was 58.5 million. I think the projections, obviously it's only it's Sunday. So the box office projections were substantially lower. This movie did way better than anticipated, and it only cost how much to make? I think it was like
160 million around
so
there.
they're almost there.
Yeah.
However, do we think that it's going to keep at the top of the box office? The Fall Guy fell flat on its butt. We have
I
more movies coming
think-
out. We have a new movie almost every weekend that's gonna be a
Yes.
sure hitter. So it's like, can it keep up in the box office?
I think it'll keep up for this week specifically, because If is kind of, the biggest thing about it is that it's got an all-star cast and it's John Krasinski directing.
Yeah.
But it hasn't really been marketed that much. I don't like when I go to the movies, I try to pay attention to the trailers, what's being marketed a lot. Mainly A Quiet Place Day One. Literally every movie I've ever seen in the past year, we've gotten that Quiet Place trailer.
Mm-hmm.
Like, damn. But so they're selling the hell out of that movie, at least at my theater specifically. But I haven't seen a lot of If. Like, the most I gotten was like maybe a trailer, and then I saw that funny thing they did with Randall Park, how they called back to the Asian Jim thing from The Office. I thought that was cute. So I thought that was funny, and it looks like a cute movie. I'm not saying like nothing against it, but this is
it's a different crowd, right?
This is
it's
a big
audience.
It's mostly a kids movie. This is a big IP. As Dan said, it's been around for over 50 years at this point. It's half a century old, so there's a big audience with that. So I think it's gonna crush. Now, I don't know a ton about box office projections. I'm more the creative side of film. That's what I want to do. I'm not as familiar with box office projections. I'm not good at that sort of thing. I'm not good as the business side for the bid. I can't talk. I'm sorry. For the business side. But I think it's gonna crush it because If is not really a ton of competition. However, the week after, we get Furiosa, which is another installment in a big franchise, and Garfield, which is another franchise that's been around for a while.
Screenings.
So, and it's got another all-star cast. So I think it's going to have some competition there, but I think it's going to, at the very least, make its money back quite easily. However, with marketing, that adds another $200 million to it.
Yeah.
So that they don't actually say in the actual budget, as we all know. So we don't know like how, because at this point, like it feels like every movie, it could be like a movie can be made for $1 million and like, oh no, it needs to make 2 billion in order to like make a profit. Like it's ridiculous with the projections these days with how it needs to make a profit. But I think it will, because it does something like Civil War, where it's just like there's so much to it. There's so many layers to it. Like I kind of want to see it again, similar with Civil War. It's just also, like, it works. It's great.
So this is set like 300 years after the last movie that was supposed to be 2017. For me, who has never seen a Planet of the Apes movie, and I did fully intend on doing a full catch up, I didn't have the time. So for someone like me who has never seen any of the movies, really, should I watch the first set of movies before I walk into this one?
I think it would help because there's a lot.
It is kind of a direct correlation between.
There is a correlation.
Right?
Like literally the opening scene, this isn't much of a spoiler. It shows, well, it's a spoiler for the last film. So spoiler for War for the Planet of the Apes.
Yeah.
But it literally shows the death of the previous protagonist within the first 5 minutes. So you'll be very confused, like, who is this guy?
Yeah.
And then it's the character of Caesar. He was the protagonist in the, first 3 films roughly. And he and there's a lot of like referencing him throughout like the whole film, like, oh, this like kind of like almost Messiah-like figure, where he's like, oh, the teachings of Caesar, because it brings in a lot of like religious aspects as well. Again, not beating over your head with it, not giving you like a biased opinion, like it's just showcasing what like religion can do, where it's like this character, Proximus Caesar, played by Kevin Durand, not Durant, Durand, who was in Abigail as well, another great film that came out this year. This character, it kind of uses the some aspects of Caesar's teachings, but like as religion does, it's using them, twists them, using them for his own selfish means. But even then, he's not like a totally evil character for the sake of evil's sake. He's very like, he's like kind of, he wants to build his empire. He wants to build his kingdom, as the name of the film suggests. But he's like, I also want, we're kind of stagnating as apes. I want apes to us to evolve. It's just the way that he goes about it is very not, it's very totalitarian, it's very rough, it's very like not right, but you can kind of see where he's coming from, and it like it works, and it's showcasing that nuance. And the way that God, it's just the way that this movie presents itself is so much more like, and it's a shame that a lot of people can't see that. Not condemning people if they don't like this film that much. That's okay. I can see it because the second half of the movie is a little bit more awkward than the first half. I still thought it was excellent for a 2.5-hour movie. Very well paced. I felt that the last few movies I've seen, Fall Guy and Ministry being the big contenders, I felt that it was very awkwardly paced and kind of slow at points. I wasn't as invested as I should be. Meanwhile, here I was totally invested. I'm like, I want to see what's going on. I want to see what's happening with these characters. I thought Owen Teague as Noah was great. Peter Macon as Raka, the orangutan in the back there. He stole the movie. Like he was like the best character.
Wasn't he in that like Star Trek show?
Yeah, the Orville. He's as
the Orville.
Bortus.
As
One of my favorite characters on the Orville. Love that character. He's very like stone cold character, but here he gives a much different performance as sort of like this like kind of older guy who's like kind of kooky a little bit, but he's still like very like a very like teachable mentor. Speaking of, this is very much a hero's journey. Like you could tell like the hero's journey is very much like but it doesn't feel like it's, you know, reiterating like that like same boring cliche, a lot of cliches. It doesn't feel like it's just using that basis that's been around since the dawn of time and using that, but it doesn't feel like cliched or generic or bland or like we've seen this before. It's like taking all these aspects that have been done in other films, but it feels like fresh. It feels like at the very least well written and interesting, and it treats the audience with respect, and it respects what came before.
You sold me on this movie. We have to go see it this week.
Yeah, you got to see. You got to watch the first. I would say watch the first, just because I love this. I love the reboot franchise. I love Planet of the Apes as a whole, but especially like this is a franchise that has no misses. Like that's saying a lot. And a
lot of people would disagree with you, John, but that's okay.
A lot of people would disagree with me. That's okay. You can disagree with me. That's what, you know, the power of subjective opinions is all about. Like, I don't mind it. For me personally, and a lot of people I know, this has no misses. And I'm loving this movie. I am singing its praises. Yet, want to know something? How great I believe the reboot franchise is, from starting with Rise? This is the weakest movie out of all of them. That is how fucking great this franchise is, when I'm singing its praises so much with how great it is, and I still think it's the weakest out of the four. That's saying something. It just goes to show how great it really is. Go watch it.
For me,
support your local movie theaters, please.
Yeah.
And do that.
I've loved this franchise since the first movie my end with this franchise was I'm a big fan of Stargate, and David Hewlett is the guy who ends up spreading the virus that turns the tide in favor of the apes and wipes out the human population. He plays that guy who's like traveling, and then, you know, he carries before the pandemic era. That movie sort of like basically foreshadowed the pandemic before it even happened. But yeah, I mean, as a franchise, like you said, they really haven't had any misses, and I love, Planet of the Apes. Growing up, I watched the original movies, and my mom was a big fan, and she got me into it, and since then I've been fascinated by just how photoreal everything looks. You guys were talking about the level of detail. It's just they just keep stepping it up, and I know Andy
Yeah,
Serkis is not
it
really
looks
as involved with
evolved.
this,
It looks
but
evolved. It's
I'm
great.
like the art form of motion capture and also just the detail, the visuals, and they're doing a really great job of carrying on, like you said, one of the oldest franchises in Hollywood today. This is like almost as old as the James Bond franchise, and they are
Yeah.
still doing a one heck of a job. And from a financial standpoint, they're off to a great start, and I think that's a solid foundation to build upon
Mhm.
because it sets them up to at least be profitable and break even, which is something that we always want to see movies do because you don't want to see a movie lose money. But
Yeah.
with that said, guys, of course, if you did get a chance to see it, let us know in the comments what you thought about the movie. If you didn't get to see it, maybe John has
Do it.
convinced you because he
Do
certainly is
it.
convincing
You
us here.
convinced me. Yeah,
So
I was like, I'm gonna
Please do
go.
it.
and of course, like and subscribe, guys. We really appreciate the likes. That it really helps us out with the algorithm. If you're here often enough, then please subscribe because that will let you know when we go live with a new show, when we go live with DCU Daily, when we have new videos on the channel. And we really do appreciate your support. We appreciate all the interaction in the chat. But right now, let's finish off the show strong and let's talk about If, which is basically it stands for Imaginary Friend. It's a movie that's coming out next week, and Angelino, you have seen the trailer for this, and before we started the show, you were
It's
just
so cute, you
yeah.
guys. Okay, I literally hadn't even heard about this movie yet. I'm one of those people that actually doesn't like to watch feel good movies because apparently I don't like to feel good. I don't know. Like I want a movie to make me cry and feel something sort of extreme. I don't know why. I don't know the why I have to be talked into watching Disney movies, but I love them. I literally turned on the trailer for this movie and my dopamine levels raised so high. It is so cute. Ryan Reynolds is back and he's working with John Krasinski, who is one of my favorite actors. Like just really a really incredible duo. Obviously John has like moved more into the directing and producing standpoint. He's just a great overall character. Like and this movie is going to be probably the cutest movie of 2024. I just truly like, I burst out laughing at a certain point and I came off of that 2-minute and 30-second something trailer with like a huge grin on my face. And I was like, you guys, did you see it? It's cute. It's just, I think it's going to be a really good break from all of these crazy action-packed movies. I think it's going to be sort of a breath of fresh air. If you just need like a good feel-good movie. We all need a good feel-good movie sometimes, you know?
Well, I don't.
This is
I'm
it.
apparently I'm
John!
a terrible barbed wire man, according to some people. So, I'm probably not going to watch this. Like, no offense. Like, I'm sure it'll be fun. I'm just kind of sick of Ryan Reynolds at this point. I know Amy Schumer's in it. I don't like Amy Schumer, and I don't like Phoebe Waller-Bridge either.
I don't like Amy Schumer. Yeah,
I don't like and it's shame because there's a lot of actors I like I love Sebastian Maniscalco, Richard Jenkins, and Bradley Cooper, and like all these actors that I like. But I don't like Phoebe Waller-Bridge. I tried to watch Fleabag. I couldn't get into it. I hated her character in Dial of Destiny. So it's just like I'm sure, and you know what? At the very least, I'll go rewatch Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends because it's essentially the same thing anyway.
Wow. Throwback. Wow.
I love that
although
show.
apparently some people are
you just pulled that from like the recesses of my brain.
Yeah.
Like,
oh my god, I love Foster's Home.
That
was my
I still remember the music.
Oh yeah.
Whoa.
Great show. But a lot of people and Sam Rockwell, amazing actor. But I think a lot of people, because I think John Krasinski had to say this where he was like, a lot of people are making comparisons to Drop Dead Fred, and he's like, I swear I didn't rip off this movie. It's just coincidence, I swear. And it's just like, woof, that is definitely an even weirder, more niche reference than that. So goddamn. So Lewis,
I'm excited. I'm excited to be
Yeah.
excited. I'm excited to walk out of a movie and be like happy.
Didn't he pass away a couple months back? This would, if that's the case, that would be
He
one of his
did. He
final-
did.
Dark.
Yeah, so that's
This
probably one of
Oh.
his final movies. Oh, that's a shame.
Yeah.
But
He passed away in March
sorry, I didn't mean
29th
for
of
it to
this
get
year.
dark so quickly. I'm sorry. But I just saw that.
Good
I'm like, oh,
going,
damn.
John. Good going.
I like Keegan Michael Key. He's gonna slide into your DMs. I mean, look, I am looking forward to this movie because I have been waiting since the first trailer dropped, and I saw it on I think it was Instagram, and it was the whole Asian gym joke, and I was just like all for it because I'm like,
Oh
this is
yeah,
perfect.
that was hilarious.
Like when they brought back the Asian gym and did the whole fake teaser trailer, like I was like, yes. Now I definitely need to see Randall Park have a role in this, you know. And of course, you got Steve Carell voicing like the big purple character who's in all the marketing. Steve Carell is one of the best voice actors in the game today, and I don't know if he's gonna be involved at all in that Office spinoff that they're doing, but he's certainly gonna be voicing Gru in Despicable Me 4 later this year, and of course, he's also voicing this character. Steve Carell, he very rarely does anything that doesn't land. I mean, that Space Force show on Netflix didn't land, but you know, most things tend to hit.
Oh.
And Matt Damon, I mean, this has got an all-star cast. And
Yeah, it really does.
If you look at the
And for
trailer,
an
I mean,
animated
Fleming,
movie, for an
it's-
animated movie to have this many people, like it's gonna
it's
be.
not even an anime. I mean, it's like
well,
half
hybrid
animated.
film.
Hybrid,
Yeah.
It's I mean, guys, is this something that you will be going to see? Angelina, what about you? Is this something that you're going to be just rushing to the theater to watch?
I mean, I'm not gonna rush to the theater because I hate going to the movie theater here in LA. I don't love people that much. There's just a lot of people at the Grove.
That's fair.
But yes, I'm excited to go see it. I'll probably grab a girlfriend, have a little girls' night, and it'll be a cute little night.
Yeah,
it's gonna be fun.
If your theater has booze, you'd be like, ooh, get a drinky before.
Yeah, it does have booze. That's the good thing about the Grove. There's alcohol in our movie theaters, y'all.
Yeah.
I mean,
that doesn't get comped though. Don't worry, I'm not sliding that in on the workers'
that's not getting
ticket.
comped. That's on you. But you know what I like about all these character posters is all these actors, like they're kind of the characters that they're voicing are sort of like there's inside jokes. Like George Clooney, of course, was in Gravity, and they've got like Space, and it's like Jon Stewart resting glitch face. I mean, you know, it's there's so I think Ryan Reynolds is certainly infusing some of his brand of humor into the casting itself. And yeah, I mean, it just looks fantastic. The trailer looked really fun. And regardless of whether we go to watch it or not, the movie it's projecting to start off with I think like $30 million the last I checked. So it's gonna have a decent start at the box office. And overall, for a week that kind of comes in between the Planet of the Apes, and then you've got the big weekend with Furiosa and the Garfield movie, which is blowing up in its pre-sales. It's a fun family movie that you can go watch if you just want to take your kids, if you want to take your friends. It's a good film that you can go check out, and I'm sure Don Preto.
Brother never told you never threaten a man's family.
And I mean, I'm sure that all of us at Also Curious will appreciate it too. So with that said, we're looking forward to going to see If. We're coming back next week to talk all about it. We'll have another DCU Daily topic. I'm sure if there's more breaking news, we will get into it. Thanks for everybody who did stop by today. If you missed the show, just rewind it right back. We'd spend a ton of time talking about Supergirl coming out June 26, 2026. We got into that. We talked about Nightwing, you know, how he's supposed to be like somebody who has a really sexy butt. I'm like, maybe he'll compete with Captain America for America's ass. We'll see. There's also Tom Brady's roast that we talked about at the beginning of the show. We got into a ton of news about Megalopolis. George Lucas's 80th birthday today. Star Wars: Episode 1, A Phantom Menace is celebrating its 25th anniversary this week. It's back in theaters. You can go watch that. You can go watch Planet of the Apes. You can even go watch If, that comes out in a couple of days. And of course, if you've got your early screening tickets for the Garfield movie, let us know what you thought about that, because we're going to be getting into that in a couple of weeks as well. John, Angelina, as always, it's been fun to have you guys on the show. Today was a really fun show, and I loved all the interaction from the folks watching us. And, we love the questions. Send them our way. leave some comments, in the comments after the live show if you didn't get to see it live. And if you are watching, then hit the like button. We really do appreciate that. That helps us out a ton. And hit the subscribe button, because we are doing this show on a weekly basis. And of course, while we are not doing the Also Curious show, we are here Monday through Friday doing DCU Daily. So if you're a big fan of all things DC, then John and I got you covered. And Angelina, of course, you'll be back next week on the show talking about If and whichever other piece of news is out here. So until then, as always, go out there, watch something at the movie theater, watch something at home, whether it's on Amazon Prime, Netflix, Apple TV Plus, Paramount, Disney Plus, Hulu, whichever streaming service you've got, Peacock, all the good ones, Crunchyroll, and then, come back and talk to us about it. And we would love to talk about the movies for the love of movies here at Also Curious, and we'll see you next time on the show.